In the grand estate of Millbrook Manor, where crystal chandeliers cast warm light across polished mahogany and Persian rugs, whispered beneath careful footsteps, Grace Williams moved through her daily routine with quiet dignity. At 58, she had worked as head housekeeper for the Thompson family for over 15 years, her gentle hands caring for both the mansion's treasures and its people. Mr. Edward Thompson, at 83, had built his fortune in textiles decades ago, but age and recent hip surgery had confined him to a wheelchair. His white beard framed a face that still held traces of the determined businessman he'd once been, though pain had etched new lines around his kind eyes. Grace had always possessed what her grandmother called the gift of seeing, an ability to notice what others missed. It was this gift that made her exceptional at her work, remembering which flowers Mrs. Thompson preferred, or how Mr. Thompson liked his morning tea prepared just so. On this particular Thursday morning, as autumn, light filtered through the tall windows of the sitting room, Grace noticed something troubling. Mr. Thompson's hands were trembling more than usual as he reached for his medication, and there was a slight slur to his speech that hadn't been there the day before. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," she said warmly, setting down his breakfast tray. "How are you feeling today, sir?" "Oh, fine, fine," he replied, but Grace caught the slight delay in his response, the way his left eye seemed to droop just a fraction more than usual. Dr. Harrison, the family physician, had just finished his weekly visit, checking on Mr. Thompson's surgical recovery. Grace had watched from the doorway as the distinguished doctor performed his routine examination, nodding approvingly at the healing incision. "Everything looks excellent, Edward," Dr. Harrison had declared. "You're healing beautifully. I'll see you next week." But as Grace helped Mr. Thompson with his lunch later that day, she noticed his fork slipping from his grasp twice, and when he asked for water, the words came out slightly jumbled. These weren't symptoms of normal surgical recovery. Grace had cared for enough elderly people to recognize something more serious. Mrs. Thompson, busy with her charity commitments, barely paused during her brief visits to her husband's room. The younger Thompson children, successful in their own right, called regularly but lived across the country. The nursing staff focused on wound care and medication schedules, following the doctor's orders precisely. But Grace watched. She listened. She remembered. That evening, as she helped Mr. Thompson prepare for bed, she made a decision that would require all her courage. In her 15 years with the family, she had never questioned a doctor's assessment or inserted herself into medical matters. "Mr. Thompson," she said gently, adjusting his pillows, "forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I've noticed some changes today. Your speech seems a little different, and your hands—" Mr. Thompson looked at her with confusion clouding his eyes. "Changes? Dr. Harrison said everything was fine." Grace took a deep breath. "Sir, I've cared for my own father after his stroke and my uncle when he had his many strokes. What I'm seeing today reminds me of those times. Perhaps we should have someone take another look?" The old man studied her face, seeing the genuine concern there. "Grace, you've taken care of this family longer than anyone. If you're worried—" "I am worried, sir. Very worried." That night, Grace called Mrs. Thompson, her heart pounding as she explained her observations. "Ma'am, I know I'm overstepping, but something isn't right. Could we please have another doctor take a look?" Mrs. Thompson, initially dismissive, heard something in Grace's voice that gave her pause. "You really think it's serious?" "Yes, ma'am. I do." Dr. Sarah Chen from the emergency neurology team arrived within the hour. Her examination was thorough and methodical, checking reflexes, speech patterns, and cognitive responses that the routine post-surgical visit hadn't assessed. "Mr. Thompson," Dr. Chen said quietly, "I believe you've had what we call a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke. It's subtle, but the signs are there. We need to get you to the hospital for immediate treatment." At the hospital, as Mr. Thompson received the clot-dissolving medication that would prevent a major stroke, Mrs. Thompson found Grace in the waiting room. "Grace," she said, tears in her eyes, "Dr. Chen said if we'd waited until tomorrow, or even a few more hours, Edward might have had a massive stroke." "How did you know?" Grace folded her weathered hands in her lap. "Mrs. Thompson, when you care for someone day after day, you learn their rhythms, their normal ways. Today wasn't normal. I paid attention." But Dr. Harrison examined him thoroughly. "Yes, ma'am. And he's a fine doctor. But he was looking for surgical complications, checking what he expected to find. Sometimes we miss what we're not looking for." 3 days later, Mr. Thompson returned home, his medication adjusted and his prognosis excellent. The quick treatment had prevented any lasting damage, and his speech and coordination had returned to normal. As Grace helped him settle back into his favorite chair by the window, he took her hand in his. "Grace," he said, his voice strong and clear. "You saved my life, not just by noticing, but by having the courage to speak up. Thank you." Grace smiled, patting his hand gently. "Mr. Thompson, that's what we do for people we care about. We pay attention, and we speak up when something's wrong, even when it's difficult." From that day forward, the entire household, family, medical staff, everyone, listened more carefully to Grace's observations. They had learned that wisdom doesn't always come with degrees or titles, but sometimes with years of caring attention and the courage to trust what you see. Dr. Chen, impressed by Grace's keen observation, asked if she'd ever considered nursing. "Doctor," Grace replied with a gentle smile, "I've been nursing this family for 15 years. I just didn't need a degree to know how to care." Mr. Thompson lived 7 more healthy years, often telling visitors the story of how his housekeeper's attention to detail and courage to speak up had given him those precious extra years with his family. And Grace continued her work, watching over the Thompson household with the same careful attention, knowing that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply to notice and to care enough to act on what we see. In a world that often moves too fast to pay attention, Grace reminded everyone that the most important medicine is sometimes just someone who cares enough to truly see you.